Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains discussion video. So before I get into it today, I do want to go over a couple of quick updates. I have not uploaded, not counting the live stream I did on Sunday night, I have not uploaded in almost a week. The reason for that, if you are unaware, I was in Chicago over the weekend. I wanted to get some videos done to put out as uploaded and scheduled videos. Unfortunately, I just kind of ran out of time. I'm horrible with time management, especially when it comes to going on vacation. So I do apologize for the lack of content, but things should be getting back to normal very soon. Secondly, there was no cast list today. There is no Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains episode next week on the 26th of June, and so there's no cast list for that episode. We will get the cast list for 108 on June 25th next week. And finally, last but not least, I was on a podcast with my good friend Frankie. Also, Caliber joined me. You probably recognize him. You might recognize both from the channel since Frankie has been on the channel. He does a podcast called The Fraud Pod where we talked about Yu-Gi-Oh!, life, really everything. So definitely check out his channel if those kind of podcasts and those kind of videos and pieces of media interest you. He is a hilarious and really awesome guy.
Like if you lose in Pokemon versus when you lose in Yu-Gi-Oh!, is there like a bigger outcome?
It's definitely reversed.
It's like oh, damn,
Yu-Gi-Oh! You lose and you die.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
dude?
and a lot of the arcs.
A lot of times.
Oh, dude.
Definitely check him out on YouTube. I will have the episode linked down below. Trying to get his channel to 500 subs. He is very close, so if you could show him some love, that would be extremely, extremely appreciated. He is an awesome guy and a very hard worker. But without further ado, let's get into it. So this is going to be a pretty interesting discussion video. I'm not really sure what I'm going to title it. We got the booster pack for October, the name of it, why it probably has to do with the Ignis, which means the Ignis will still be prominent, or at least I will be, come September, October, probably to be expected since it seems like he is going to be the main villain for a period of time. And I also want to go over some new cards that we recently got called Processlayers. That's the new archetype, and the reason I want to go over them is because they might have to do with a Soulburner deck change. They're Cyberse cards, first and foremost, and Cyberse cards are usually shown in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains. Now, not all Cyberse cards are shown, but when I was going down the list of Cyberse cards that have been released, besides like a Nightmare or a Mech Knight here and there, I'd say probably like 90% of the Cyberse cards that have been shown to us in the real game have appeared in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains. Obviously, the Cyberse has to do with the Cyberse world, which is where the Ignis were from. So the Cyberse, whenever a card is Cyberse, it already has a direct tie to the anime. Now, again, there's been no confirmation or no guarantee that these cards are going to appear in VRains, but I'm going to go over some thoughts on why I do believe Soulburner is actually going to ditch Salamangreats for the time being, and I am going to get to that in just a second. But before I begin, I do want to go over the name of the booster pack that will be coming out in October. Remember, this is probably the second to last booster pack of the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains era, assuming VRains is going to end in March of 2020. We don't have any confirmation on that, but we are using the precedent of when 5D, Zexal, and Dark 5 all ended. We will have the booster pack in October and the booster pack in January, and then the booster pack in April of 2017 was Code of the Duelist, I believe, which was the first booster pack of the Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains era. So even though Arc 5 ended in March of 2017, that April booster pack did not apply to Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. So that's another important thing to keep in mind, that this is probably the second to last VRains era booster pack, and it is called Ignition Assault. The first word, ignition, seems very close to Ignister, Ignis. I don't think that's a coincidence. I do think that is a bit of a play on words, and a clever play on words by Konami at that. So I do believe that whatever card is going to be on the cover of this will probably have to do with I. Now, another really important pack release over in the OCG that probably coincides with what we might want to expect in VRains, June 22nd, actually this week, I believe it's this weekend, Revolver's structure deck drops, and in that structure deck is Topologic Zerovoros, and I believe Borreload Furious Dragon, which is a fusion monster. So I expect Revolver to duel very, very soon. I believe Revolver is probably going to have his first formal duel of Season 3, not counting his current duel against I, probably in July. I don't know who it's going to be against. I mean, the two top contenders for Revolver's first duel, probably I and Soulburner. And I say I because that's obviously who Revolver is going after right now. Really the only person Revolver is going after at the moment. And I say Soulburner because that was foreshadowed very heavily in opening 3. And even early on in this season, they have bickered quite a bit. And there's always a lot of tension between them when they do have interaction. So I would say Revolver versus Soulburner or Revolver versus I is probably on the horizon since his structure deck is dropping within the week. And big cards like Zerovoros and Borreload Furious Dragon probably will get animated and appear in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains, at least we can hope. So those are some things going on in the OCG, at least releases in the future, that probably will coincide with Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains. Whether Ignition Assault is going to, again, I know I'm a broken record, is going to have a Pendulum monster on the cover or not, remains to be seen. I'm completely, I don't want to say completely, but I'm very heavily off that bandwagon where I believe that Pendulums will show up. I don't believe Pendulums are going to be in VRains, but if they are going to be in VRains, it probably will be through I always felt it had to be through a new character, and I, to a degree, is like a new character. At least he's acting like one. His archetype is brand new. So the fact that this is matching up with Ignition, Assault, at least gives you maybe a little bit of hope. If it was like they would never name the pack after like a Yu-Gi-Oh character, but if it was like Revolver's Revenge, like if that was the booster pack in October, then it's like, all right, it's probably not going to be a Pendulum card. It's probably going to be a Topologic or a Borreload. So at least there's some hope there for the people that really do want to see Pendulums. I do want to have a quick discussion with you guys, and I'm very excited to hear your perspective in all of this. Processlayers is an archetype that got revealed for, I believe it's deck build Mystic Fighters, and again, there is no confirmation that any of these cards are going to show up in VRains. I do want to stress that once again, but it's very interesting because Processlayers are Cyberse themed. And if we scroll down, now there's a lot of Cyberse monsters here. There's a lot of level 4. You have a couple level 4 Fire Cyberse effect, a level 4 Dark Cyberse tuner. I'm not the kind of person that's going to go over each and every one of these cards or tell you how the deck is going to operate. I'm not sure. I'm 100% positive there are better people on YouTube to explain that to you guys. But I do want to get back to the two big boss synchros of this deck. And the first one is a level 8 Fire Cyberse Synchro Tuner effect. And then the second one is a level 12 Fire Cyberse Synchro effect. And I think it's very interesting that the boss monsters, and that I think a majority of these monsters, even though the attributes are all kind of spread out, are Fire Cyberse monsters. Now, Soulburner is in a very interesting position since he's lost Flame. In fact, Goosey Q, a good buddy of mine, he was the one who tweeted to me and he said, sneak pack of new Yu-Gi-Oh! Cyberse cards, is this maybe for Soulburner and his new deck without Flame? And it really got me thinking about Soulburner's position right now. Before he met Flame, he used, I believe it was like a generic Fire Warrior deck, correct me if I'm wrong, but Flame was the one who gave him Salomon Greats. Flame was the one who gave him the Cyberse cards. And Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains has done something probably more than any other Yu-Gi-Oh! show has done, where their characters have changed decks so much. Go has changed his deck. Aoi Zaizen has changed her deck. Even Soulburner, when he met Flame, has changed his deck. Playmaker, when he met I, has changed his deck. And my first thought was, well, they're never going to have Soulburner not use Salomon Greats. I mean, Salomon Greats is meta. It's one of the best decks. It's one of the most popular decks in the game right now. But remember, Trickstars were meta. Gokis were meta. Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains in the past has had absolutely zero issue of abandoning a meta top-tier deck in the real game to give a character a brand new deck. We saw it when Aoi Zaizen switched to Marinsis, and we saw it when Go Onizuka switched to Dino Wrestlers. Now, it seems like Go is going to be back using Gokis based on Opening 3, which is really cool, and of course, a duel with him is coming up in the very near future. But I'm very interested to see what Aoi Zaizen and Homura do, because both of these characters got their Cyberse monsters through their Ignis, and I really do believe that they might switch decks again. I really do think Aoi Zaizen might go back to Trickstars, and I'm not sure what Homura would go back to. But here's a very interesting theory. I know we're going to get into a kooky theory here on a Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. There are a lot of people, including myself, that are starting to suspect that Soulburner might at some point fight against Team Playmaker and might fight for I. It was very interesting to me that the first question I asked Soulburner was, "Do you hate me?" And Soulburner replied no. Almost green lighting to I that, okay, Soulburner doesn't hate me. I might be able to use this to my advantage. Because Soulburner, as we know, misses Flame dearly. He absolutely misses Flame. He was probably the closest to any of the Ignis as any of the Lost Incident victims were. Maybe you could argue Playmaker to I, but Flame and Homura I thought were at that same level, if not closer, than Playmaker and I were, especially how long it took Playmaker and I, especially from Yusaku's point of view, to become friends, to become true partners. I mean, Soulburner and Flame hit it right off the bat. So if I approaches Soulburner and says, "Listen, I can revive Flame. I want to revive Flame. I want to bring back my friends. Is what I'm doing really all that bad?" By doing this, I'm also taking down Soultech, the company that tortured you for 6 months, and the company that is somewhat responsible for your parents' death because they were looking for you. Had they not been involved, your parents would still be alive. There are, I think, very easy ways for I to manipulate Soulburner into fighting against Playmaker and Revolver, especially Revolver, because we know Soulburner does not like Revolver. There has always been a schism between those two, even when they work together like they're working together now, and Opening 3 tells us that they are going to duel at some point in this season, most likely. So if I says that, and then I give Soulburner these Cyberse Synchro monsters, or these Fire Cyberse monsters, or whatever, the Processlayers archetype, how insane would that be? And all of a sudden, these archetypes, these Cyberse cards, which remember, most Cyberse cards have been used in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains. Not saying Processlayers will be used, but, when you look at a lot of the cards and you see a lot of the fire effect monsters and then the two big fire synchro monsters, I think it's really interesting. I really think it's fascinating that maybe Soulburner is going to use these cards. Here's another thing. Flame. If Flame becomes a human, maybe he will use these cards, because he's not going to use Salomon Greats. I mean, I is not using, well, he is using Cyberse, but he's using Ignister. He's using a different type of the deck that Playmaker would use. He's not using the Talkers, per se, and all the, backup Secretary and all those cards. So if all the Ignis do get revived into human forms, which I think we would all love to see, if their designs look half as good as Eyes does, they're all going to be beautifully designed. That would be also really cool if maybe Flame uses Processlayers, although there are still a majority of monsters that are Earth Effect, that are Dark Effect. The Xyz monster is an Earth Cyberse Xyz Effect monster. I can't really see Soulburner using an archetype that isn't Fire, just because it does not really go with his aesthetic as well as Fire does, but who knows? It's no guarantee that Processlayer will be in the show, but regardless if it's Processlayer or not, I still do believe that Soulburner is going to ditch Salomon Greats in this season or at some point in the show, because it just seems like that's what Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains does. They like to give characters new decks, especially when they lose a partner, or like in Awie's case when she gained Aqua as a partner, gain a partner. That seems like it's their moment to switch decks. But you guys let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of Processlayers as an archetype in general. This level 12 Cyber Synchro monster. Whenever I see a level 12 Synchro, I always just think Jack Atlas. So to see anything that reminds me of Jack Atlas is always a thumbs up, and it would be really cool. I love the design of Pyro, and I like how the Synchro monsters are not Processlayer, it's Pyroceslayer. That's kind of confusing. Pyroceslayer, Final Sigma. That would be a beautiful monster to see animated, and it would be really cool to see in the show. But you guys let me know if you think we will see Processslayer in VRains. Let me know if you do think Soulburner will switch from Salomon Greats to a new deck, and let me know all your thoughts on anything VRains related down below. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, Samuel Stark, Thomas Adderley, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Vincent Van Der Veen, Rexkentrix, Jordan Osceola, Smith620, and to my Diamond tier patrons Jesse Wood and Garrett Palmer, and to my Egyptian God tier patron Chris Swan. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. You make my life much, much easier, and thank you to everyone who just watches my videos, because without you guys, I would not be able to do this. Thank you all so much for watching. I will talk to you all down below, and I hope you have an amazing day.